My name is Catherine. I'm 33 years old, and last Sunday morning started like any other peaceful weekend. I was in my kitchen barefoot in my favorite oversized sweatshirt, sipping freshly brewed coffee and scrolling through a new mystery novel on my tablet. The house I'd bought all by myself 3 years ago felt unusually still, quiet, safe. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the front window and my heart stalled. On my porch stood the same people who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. My parents, my older brother Marcus, his wife Bethany, and their 2 kids. Each one of them had a suitcase. The sight hit me like a slow-moving car crash. I opened the door on instinct. Before I could speak, Marcus's eyes scanned my living room. Then he said with unnerving calm, "It's a big house for someone who lives alone." My mother smiled too brightly, stepping forward with open arms. I didn't return. "We're just so proud of you, sweetie. You've made such a nice home for yourself." She glanced behind me at the hardwood floors and crown molding, like a buyer appraising a property. My father didn't say anything at first. He walked in without asking, nodded approvingly at the staircase, then added, "It's practical, quiet neighborhood, close to schools." My niece wandered in and sat on my sofa like she owned it. My nephew opened the fridge. Bethany took out her phone and started taking photos. "We'll need better lighting if we're going to rearrange things." "I've got some ideas for the living room," she said without looking at me. I felt my stomach twist. "What is this?" I finally asked. "Why are you here?" There was a pause. Marcus smiled that same smug smile he wore when he beat me at Monopoly and gloated about it for days. "You don't even have a family to worry about," he said. "We will take the house." I stood frozen mug still in hand coffee going cold. In that moment, I realized they didn't come to visit. They came to claim. The same people who watched me sleep in my car during the worst year of my life were now standing in my foyer luggage in tow, assuming they had a right to everything I'd built. They had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. I wish I could tell you I slammed the door in their faces. I wish I could say I laughed at the absurdity of their sudden arrival and turned them away with a sarcastic bow. But I didn't. I stood there silent and stunned, paralyzed by a surge of memories I had spent 3 years trying to bury. Because before this house, before the fresh coffee and quiet mornings, there was the version of me they left behind. The version who begged them for help. 3 years ago, I was working as a data analyst for a mid-sized logistics firm. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. I had a small apartment downtown, a well-worn car that always squeaked in reverse, and a growing 401k that I was irrationally proud of. Then came the merger, and with it, my layoff. I received a severance check that barely covered 2 weeks of expenses. I told myself it was temporary. I had skills. I had savings. But job after job vanished before I could even get to the interview. Layoffs were everywhere. Competition was brutal. My savings drained faster than I could have imagined. The rent came due. The bills stacked up. I needed help. The first call I made was to my father. We hadn't been close in years, but I thought the situation might awaken something paternal in him. "You should have planned better, Catherine," he said, as if he were teaching a lesson rather than crushing me. "Life's tough. Suck it up." He hung up before I could respond. My mother followed with her usual brand of passive-aggressive encouragement. "We're praying for you, honey," she said, her voice sugar-coated and empty. "Maybe it's time to think about marrying someone stable." My brother Marcus, the same man now walking through my home like he owned it, said, "We've got 2 kids and real responsibilities. You're single. You'll bounce back." I was living out of my car by the end of that winter, showering at a gym, applying to jobs at the library, lying to recruiters that I was working remotely. I'd eat bananas and peanut butter because it was cheap and filled me up. I used to cry when it snowed, not because it was cold. I'd grown up in Chicago. I cried because I knew it meant sleeping in a frozen car with the engine off to save gas. And through it all, not one of them called. Not once. If any of this is sounding familiar to you, if you've ever been abandoned by the very people who were supposed to love you the most, write yes in the comments below. And if you believe no one should have to earn love from their own family, hit that subscribe button. You belong here. It took me nearly 10 months to crawl out of that hole. I found a part-time data entry gig that led to a full-time position at a small analytics startup. I started bartending on the weekends just to keep up with the bills. I worked 7 days a week for a year and a half. I didn't go on dates. I didn't take vacations. I didn't ask anyone for help. And when I finally qualified for a mortgage and signed the papers on this house, I cried in the parking lot. Not tears of joy, tears of proof. Proof that I had survived what they let me suffer through. Proof that I never needed them after all. And now, 3 years later, they had the audacity to walk through my door with backpacks and baby toys and talk about sharing the space. They said I didn't have a family. What they failed to understand was I didn't need one to build something worth protecting. I had done it alone, and I was no longer the woman they thought they could break. I didn't sleep the night they arrived. I lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, trying to make sense of what had happened. They came without notice, without apology, without shame. They walked through my home like they were inspecting a property they'd inherited. The next morning, it got worse. I came downstairs to find my mother rearranging my kitchen cabinets. "Your spices are in the wrong place," she said, as if this were her house. My father was pacing around the garage, measuring the space with a tape measure I didn't even know I owned. "Plenty of room in here for storage, or even a little workbench," he muttered. Bethany was walking through the hallway, snapping more photos, narrating to her Instagram followers about how they were upgrading their living situation. I found Marcus at my dining table, sipping from my mug, reviewing my mortgage paperwork like it was a community asset. "This place is too much for one person, Catherine. You've got empty rooms just gathering dust. It only makes sense for all of us to stay. It's temporary, of course." I laughed. Not a joyful laugh. A sharp, bitter exhale that sounded more like a warning. Temporary, like the time you told me not to call until I got my act together. "That kind of temporary," Marcus smirked. "Don't be dramatic. That was 3 years ago. Things change." I couldn't believe the audacity. "Yes. Things change," I said, tightening my grip on the back of the dining chair. "Like how I rebuilt my entire life without a damn word from any of you." My mother stepped in, ever the peacemaker. "Sweetheart, you're overreacting. We're just trying to be together as a family. Think of the kids. They need space. You don't have children. You wouldn't understand." That stung more than I wanted to admit. Bethany chimed in from the kitchen. "Emma already picked the pink room upstairs. Jacob will take the smaller one, and we were thinking the basement would work for you. It's cozy. You've got a space heater, right?" I blinked. "You want me to live in my own basement?" My father didn't even hesitate. "It's logical. The master has an ensuite. Your mother and I need the extra space. You can make do downstairs." I felt my face go numb, a cold calm spreading across my skin. "And what about my office?" "Convert it," Marcus replied flatly. "You work from home. Just use the dining table. You've got Wi-Fi." At that moment, Jacob burst through the hallway screaming, "I found a secret room in the basement. I want it to be my game room." Bethany clapped. "How cute, they're already bonding with the place." No one saw the way my hands clenched into fists at my sides. No one saw the tremble in my jaw as I bit back everything I wanted to scream. They had come not just to visit, they had come to take over. To erase the years I had fought for stability and independence. And the worst part, they believed they were entitled to it. Later that evening, while pretending to scroll my phone, I overheard Marcus talking to my father on the porch. "She'll come around. She's always been soft. She just wants to feel important." My father grunted in agreement. "Give her a week and she'll cave. Just keep acting like it's already settled." That was the moment I stopped questioning whether this was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't. This was a siege, and I was done being conquered. I didn't cry. Not this time. Not like 3 years ago, when I wept in a Walmart parking lot and prayed for anyone to care. No, now I was cold. Clear, focused. If they were launching a siege, I would build a fortress. The next morning, before anyone was awake, I packed my valuables into 3 storage bins and locked them in my bedroom. Then I drove to Nathan's condo, the man I had been quietly seeing for a few months, someone patient, grounded, and deeply aware of my past. When I explained what had happened, he didn't hesitate. You need witnesses and a plan. Within hours, he had called his cousin, an attorney, who helped me understand something important. If I allowed them to stay long enough, even without rent, they could claim tenant rights. That meant eviction wouldn't be simple. It would be legal warfare. So I acted. First, I printed every text they'd ever sent me, especially Marcus's last one. Don't contact us until you've cleaned up your mess. We're done. I highlighted that one in yellow. I pulled up my security camera app and saved the footage of them entering my home, dragging luggage, announcing their plans. Then I texted Marcus. Let's meet tonight at 6. Everyone, I have an idea I'd like to share. They came to the table like smug royalty. My mother had even dressed up as if expecting a toast in her honor. I stood at the head of the dining table, notes in hand, and took a deep breath. I've spoken to a lawyer, I began. Silence. I've also reviewed the laws on squatters' rights in this state, and I know exactly how long someone has to stay before it becomes a legal nightmare. My father shifted in his chair. Bethany stopped mid-sip of sparkling water. So before this gets messier than it already is, I'm making myself crystal clear. You will not be staying here. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Marcus chuckled like I'd told a bad joke. Catherine, be reasonable. You've always been so emotional. I'm not emotional, I interrupted. I'm prepared. I slid a folder across the table. Inside are copies of your texts from 3 years ago, video footage of you moving in without consent, and a formal notice revoking any implied permission to remain on the property. Bethany's face went pale. My mother blinked rapidly. My father muttered something about ungrateful children. I stood taller. If you're not gone by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I'll be filing a trespassing complaint. And trust me, I've got the evidence to back it up. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't let him. I looked each of them in the eye. You left me to freeze in a car. You don't get to come back now and steal my roof. Then I walked out of my own dining room and left them sitting there stunned in the silence they'd earned. They left just before sunrise. I watched from the window as they packed their suitcases in silence, the same ones they had confidently rolled into my foyer just days before. No words were exchanged, no apologies, no last-ditch pleas. Just the scraping of wheels across my driveway and the hum of an engine as they drove away, shrinking into the horizon, like a bad memory losing its grip on the present. When the dust settled, I didn't celebrate. I didn't pour a victory drink or blast triumphant music. I just stood in the center of my kitchen palms, flat on the counter, breathing in the silence like it was the rarest form of peace. The war was over, but the scars were still fresh. Later that day, Nathan showed up with bagels and coffee, like he always did when he sensed I wouldn't ask for comfort, but needed it anyway. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Not great, but free. That evening, I gathered my journal, the one I started in the library during my darkest days, and flipped to a blank page. I wrote, sometimes the people who abandoned you will come back not to make amends, but to take what you built without them. And sometimes the greatest strength is not letting them. I closed the journal and left it on my nightstand, not as a reminder of pain, but as a bookmark in the story I was still writing. I've since repainted the pink bedroom Emma claimed, turning it into a creative studio. The spare room Jacob wanted for a game room. It's now a small reading nook with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the basement they wanted to shove me into. It's a workout space with soft lights, mirrors, and a yoga mat, where I stretch every morning with gratitude. Every inch of this house tells a different story now, not of intrusion, but of ownership. Not of surrender, but of survival. Some people ask if I've forgiven them. The honest answer, not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness is complicated when the wounds still ache, but I've learned that peace doesn't require closure. It only requires boundaries and the courage to enforce them. I didn't get justice from my family. I got it from myself. From the woman I became when they stopped showing up. From the voice I found when I stopped begging to be heard. And if that makes me the villain in their story, so be it. I'm the hero in mine. And here's what I want to ask you, yes, you reading this. Have you ever had to stand up to people who thought your success gave them a claim to your life? Have you ever drawn a line not out of anger, but out of self respect? Tell me in the comments, how did you find your strength? And if this story resonated with even a small part of your journey, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Because no matter what they say, your story matters. And you are not alone.